Welcome to another edition of The Big Picture. I'm Jarret Johnson, and boy, the Big Picture is a feature where I look at the top takeaways from Texas Tech head football coach Matt Wells' game week press conference. It's every Monday morning at around 11:15. This week, Coach Wells was facing, let's face it, a lot of criticism for Texas Tech's collapse against number 8 Texas on Saturday, the previous Saturday. Red Raiders were up by 15 points with about 3 minutes left, and they blew it. Texas was able to come back, tie it, send it to overtime, and win. And Coach Wells basically took the first question, and the first takeaway was he took the first question and said, "Look, the coaches, they had the players prepared both emotionally and just their attention span and physically they were ready to go, and they showed that and they played well. And so the coaches and players were ready." In all three phases of the game and made big plays. But he also mentioned in every phase of the game, if they had just done one more thing or avoided one mistake or made one more big play in any phase, and he said the coaching staff too, if they were able to make that happen and not make a mistake, that they would have won that game. So it was that close, right there for the taking. But in the end, they lost, and there are no more victories. He said that several of the fan base had made that very well known to him, and he understood that and he accepted that. But now they got to move on. I think that was my next big takeaway is Coach Wells. He's really making an effort to, which he has to. It's his job. It's the only thing to do is to, accept that, understand this is what happened, and then learn from it and try not to make the same mistake again. In terms of if he'll be able to do that, if the team will be able to do that, I think that's going to be one of the big questions this week, and we won't know until Saturday when Texas Tech takes on Kansas State. It's the first road test for the Red Raiders of the season in Manhattan. Coach Wilson said it was the first time it'll be the first time he's ever been there in that stadium, in Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. So of course Kansas State is coming off a huge upset victory over then number 3 Oklahoma and Norman. So Kansas State loses at home to Arkansas State, and then 2 weeks later, despite a depleted roster, beats the number 3 team in the country at their place. So that just shows you how crazy, not only college football is in general from week to week, but also right now during the corona, how different it is. So that's, kind of Matt Wells brought that up. Coach Wells mentioned just that aspect of what's going on right now in the season, and that they cannot let, just like they didn't let the disappointing though victorious season opening effort against Houston Baptist define the team, and they played a lot better against Texas. They're not going to let that collapse, that meltdown, define the season. And we'll find out. We'll see. So that was a big takeaway. I actually asked Coach Will specifically because I've seen a pattern with some close losses for Texas Tech, and it's that the Red Raiders were really playing well defensively in the second half against Texas. I believe they had 5 or 6 possessions in a row where they didn't allow any points for Texas's offense. I think Texas got a block punt at one point for a touchdown there in the third quarter. But defensively, Tech was doing a great job, really putting a lot of pressure on Texas, even only with 3 guys. There were some transfers I'm going to get to here in a minute, like Tyree Wilson, who were really impressive. But bottom line is they were really rushing really hard, even though with just 3 people, they were really getting upfield, going for it. And then in the back end, when they were forced to play the pass, they did a really good job for a consistent basis for a while of defending the pass, making big plays, and not getting penalties, and getting off the field ultimately, which is what it's all about. But then in the final 3 minutes, it appeared they called off the Dogs. So this is the same thing they did against Baylor, where they played really good defensively for almost the entire game, and then they sat back in what appeared to be a type of prevent when what Coach Wells, he confirmed that it's not a prevent now. They stopped rushing their 3 guys. They kind of kept them in their lane, so Sam Ellinger, Texas's quarterback, couldn't get out on some of those draws or scrambles. But to me, that's a big mistake. They obviously made a big mistake because they called off the Dogs against Baylor last year when they lost in overtime, and then again Saturday night, same thing. They were dominating. They were kicking Texas's butt up front. They couldn't block Tyree Wilson and Eli Howard when they both were out there. And then you call off the Dogs, and we saw the result. So, bottom line is, while it may not be a prevent, they need to keep rushing. They need to keep doing what they're doing, keep the pedal to the metal instead of just hold on for the victory. And so that was a big confirmation for me, a big takeaway that, okay, it's the same call in terms of the language and what they're saying, and a lot of the same cover scheme in the back end. But the big difference is, even though they're only rushing 3, those guys were putting pressure on, and they stopped them. They basically told them to keep their lanes and don't let the quarterback scramble out. So to me, like, again, stay aggressive. Hopefully that's not something they do again. You know, we've seen it twice now, at least. Let's not see it another time, because don't call it prevent, call it whatever you want. Bottom line, what they were doing was obviously preventing themselves from winning. So hopefully they just stay aggressive. And I think my final takeaway is that I asked Coach Wells about the transfers, because defensively the transfers played really well. And he basically just confirmed what I saw out there and what I was thinking, that those guys, they're as good as advertised. You go down the line, he's a junior college transfer, but Krishan Merriweather, he's leading the Big 12 in tackles. He's been great. Jacob Morgenstern had a monster game. He had a block punt. He had some big hits out there. He was good in coverage. Morgenstern was, if he played like that every game, he'd be I think he'd be a fan favorite. He was amazing. Brandon Randall had a big game. Colin Schooler, he had some big open field tackles. He didn't have any big tackles for loss, but he did make some open field tackles that prevented huge gains. He had 7 tackles. So Schooler, he was better as the game went along, as Coach Wells said. And then Eric Monroe was pretty good in coverage. He did some things that didn't really show up in the stat sheet, but where Ellinger was looking, his first read, where Monroe covered it up, and he had to go to somebody else, and sometimes it led to an inaccurate pass, or even once it was a coverage sack. So Monroe did some good things in coverage. He's definitely an upgraded safety. And then Tyree Wilson, to me, was a revelation. He had a sack plus a quarterback hurry. He made his debut. He's the giant former 4-star. He was a traditional transfer from A&M who was granted a waiver by the NCAA, so he's immediately eligible. Now he's having to play himself into shape, and that's a problem. Everybody I've talked to in and around the program is like, look, he just got here in the summer. He's put on a lot of good weight, but he still needs to get in football shape. So that's something where, just like Coach Wells said, I expect all these guys just to get better as the season goes along. Schooler, Monroe, and Wilson all got here in the summer. So it's not like they've had a lot of time to get acquainted with this defense. So they'll get better, and that's going to help this defense. I think the defense is going to get better because of it, because those are 3 big-time talents. Honestly, they really raised the talent level of that defense tremendously. And I think you saw that from some of the things that Texas said post-game, that the speed of Tech's defense kind of surprised them, especially after playing UTEP, for whatever that's worth, but just that they weren't used to Tech's defense being that fast. So there you have it. And those are my big takeaways from Coach Wells this week. He's facing a lot of scrutiny, and probably rightfully so. Though I will say, for me, overall, looking forward to this week, to Kansas State week, that I'm more hopeful about this season and this program than I was a week ago heading into this game after Houston Baptist. This team looked more like I expected, and I can't wait for Saturday to see what happens again. It was crazy this last Saturday. It ought to be crazy again in Manhattan. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.